Besides, what is very strange is Medvedev never really took an interest in the Ukrainian question. He was always low-key on it. He was more involved in trying to see that corruption in Russia, legality. I mean, there is no legality, and but he always sort of took himself out of the Ukrainian-Russian relationship. He hasn't been to Ukraine. He hasn't done anything. The pretext that for the letter was that they would not send an ambassador right now, a Russian ambassador to Kyiv. And Ukraine had already agreed that they would accept him. But then Medvedev claims that, well, they've been delaying it, they've been playing footsie with this thing and so on. This was the pretext for the slamming letter to Yushchenko. So I believe there's going to be a backlash, not among the Russian sort of citizens, but by people who are more in the intellectual, scientific, business communities that have close dealings with Ukraine and don't want to see them destroyed by some madness coming in, all of a sudden, this hurricane of criticism, especially the business community. I've spoken to a number of people in Russia since the letter came out, and they say that a lot of the Russian businessmen and major business people are very upset with this kind of a thing, because this is not good for business. It's not good for stability, and it'll create problems.
Roman, Slavko Martiniuk, intermediate.
Okay.
My question is a little bit speculative, but to what extent do you think that Medvedev's letter might have been motivated by the arrangements in the so-called Iran, Russia, U.S. triangle, where there may have been, during Obama's visit, there may have been some sort of an undisclosed secret agreement where Russia cooperates with the U.S. on Iran in exchange for a free hand in the near abroad. Is there? You think there's any validity to that kind of a thinking? Thank you.
I don't believe so. I've heard that theory once before, and I don't subscribe to that. Iran is in a period of crisis itself. And amazingly enough, a few weeks ago, there were many examples of Iranians yelling debt to Russia instead of debt to the United States. Burning the Russian flag in Tehran and other cities. Russia suddenly became more of an enemy than at that moment the United States was seen as the enemy. It wasn't. Simply because the Russians stated that they recognized the results of the election, Ahmadinejad's victory. Yeah.
But this death to the Russian is not coming from Ahmadinejad's.
Yeah, no.
It's coming from Rafsanjani's.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But they have to look at that very carefully. I believe that at this stage, Ukraine is much more important to Western Europe and the United States in terms of energy supplies, geopolitically, than Iran. The reactor is a legitimate issue for the United States, but not for Europe that much. The Europeans tend to see Iran more in terms of it supplying gas to the Nabucco pipeline, which they need Iranian gas as an alternative to Russian gas. So I don't believe anybody would make a deal like that. You support us in Iran, we'll give you a free hand in Ukraine. It's not going to happen because the United States is not able to give them a free hand in Ukraine. If they want a free hand, they'll take it anyway, with or without the approval or blessings of the United States and the West. The United States has very little leverage over that situation, I believe.
If that was speculative, this is even more so. Bob McConnell. Roman, do you think there could be, or we will see over time, any connection between the letter from the Russian president and the prime minister's speech about building a military base in the lands they just took over from Georgia?
I believe that's all linked in a very sort of broad Russian geopolitical strategy that they have. By building a base, I believe it's in Abkhazia, they just want to show the rest of the world, we're here to stay. I mean, you're not going to force us out. Putin recently stated that on his visit to Ossetia, that it's not important if anybody else in the world recognizes you or recognizes your independence, as long as we do. If we recognize it, that's enough. So don't make any waves about international recognition. Well, this is like, joining the Russian Federation. Here you are, guys. Call yourself independent if you want. And what? I think, however, with the Ukrainian question, they don't stand, they never stood much on legal grounds in these debates. But I don't believe they really want to get that far with the Ukrainians in a confrontation that far, because the Ukrainians are too highly exposed in the sense of there are too many people who are with them. They're a European country. This is not the Caucasus, and that's going to create huge problems for them. So, they'll continue going after the Georgians. That's a given, I believe. And they'll continue the propaganda war against the Georgians and support Ossetia and Abkhazia. But I doubt that they could get away with this with Ukraine.
I'm Ben Altan. There's another factor in Ukrainian-Russian relations, the Crimean Tatar factor. And this is not the first time that Russia has been attacking Ukraine. Russia has been attacking, stirring the pot, so to speak, in Crimea by attacking the Russians in Crimea. Attacking Crimean Tatar cemeteries, claiming Sevastopol being the Russian city and all that. Why does Ukraine stay silent against Russia's encouragement in the Russian right-wingers in attacking Crimean Tatars? And why doesn't Ukraine use the Crimean Tatar factor? Because, as you know, Crimean Tatars are fully almost 90% pro-Ukrainian. But they are getting tired of being attacked by Russia and not getting any response from Ukrainian government. Could you comment on the Crimean Tatar factor in the Ukrainian-Russian relations?
I think beginning back since the beginning of Ukrainian independence, the Crimean Tatars played a very strong pro-Ukrainian role. I remember at that time I was in the Crimea and I met with Mustafa Dzhemiliev and people around him, and actually saw what was going on in the Crimea. But